presently, this gathering, all of the funds that came in for this gathering are going to the Seva Foundation. And the Seva Foundation is a nonprofit that does work in developing countries and with the American Indians and so on. It's a very interesting and unusual organization, which maybe we can go into later. But at any rate, we have a rotating chairmanship in our organization, and for these past couple of years, I've been chairman. Now, being chairman of a foundation is, it's a role. And, but when I go to Nepal, which is one of the countries where we do work and where we have a presence, we are an NGO, a non-governmental organization that has been legitimized by the King and the Queen, and so we're real over there. And just like the Red Cross or any of the other organizations. So when I go to Nepal, I put on my blue blazer and my tie, and I am now chairman of a board. And in the course of my last term, the time I was there last time, I had an agenda in which I wanted the government to do certain things for us, and we in turn are doing certain things for the government. Now, I had an opportunity to meet the Minister of Health. Now, the Minister of Health, he has an agenda also, right? He's, after all, a representative of the King, and he sees me, as you can imagine, what somebody sees the chairman of a board of a funding agency from the West when you're a poor country, what I look like to him. And we come together. Now, he is the person that can say yes or no to certain things we need to help us with the opportunity to serve, really. And so we come into the room, each with a certain entourage we've got, and we sit down at a temple. It's just like, it's like real people, you know. And I don't tell them there are no adults present. I mean, I'm not going to scare them. And we sit down and we meet and face one another, and we do all the bowing and the hellos, and he's the Minister of Health and I'm the chairman of the board. We have our roles and we each have our agendas. Now, at that point, and I am saying I've been working on my consciousness now for 25 years, but this job, I think I'm not going to get through. This is going to be a hard one, and I'm probably going to burn out on it very quickly, I think. But I'll see if I can work with it. So I am sitting opposite him, and I've got my little reminder things. These are like worry beads. They're just beads that I use to remind myself so I don't get too lost in the drama. And I'm just sitting there looking at him, and suddenly our eyes meet. And I find another being just like me, except he's busy being the Minister of Health, and I'm busy being the chairman of the board. And we just met for a moment behind our roles as two fellow beings. Now, for an Easterner, that's much easier to do than a Westerner, because they're trained to do that. I mean, that's part of what their acculturation process is, unlike ours. For me, it took me 25 years to realize that I was a being who was being chairman of a board rather than the chairman of the board. For him, he was trained to fulfill a role without getting lost in it. So that when we meet and suddenly there is this delight. And we meet as two beings who are sharing the dance, if you will, of forms. And then we go into the game, just as a Monopoly game, with his agenda, but instead of him being his agenda and me being my agenda, we are two beings who are meeting here and playing as two people, Minister of Health and Chairman of the Board, and dealing with our agendas. And we're dealing with it from a collaborative place in that we both would like to end suffering. And the result is that our dialogue together brings us closer together, rather than ending up being divisive, where, well, if you won't do this, then I won't do this, instead of separating us. It's just like Russians and Americans, or any people where they come together in a dialogue, whether they can meet in what's behind it as well as being in their separateness, can they meet in their unity. And what I experienced was that my journey to Nepal this time, I came out of it of continuous meetings meeting with the ophthalmic associations and all this stuff, continuous meetings. I came out of it with more energy than I went in. I came out of it lighter than I went in. I came out of it with my heart more open than I went in. I came out of it seeing that us included Nepalese and Westerners and people from the States, instead of the people from the States were dealing with them in developing countries. Now, so what I'm learning, and every time, as I was approaching the Minister of Health, I thought, oh my God, you know, it's fine to play this game when you're playing low key, but here I am now, I'm the chairman playing with the Minister of Health. This is big business. And is that going to suck me into losing my consciousness into it? And what I had to do was just keep reminding myself and keep waking up until I met him and we met behind it, and then it started to be play from there on in. And so what I'm learning is how to take the stuff of daily life and convert it. During the break, one of us asked me, how do you keep from burning out? Well, the answer to how do you keep from burning out is the injunction that the Bhagavad Gita, which is one of the sacred texts of the East, enjoins, which says, do not be identified with being the actor. It's one of the key things. In other words, when you drive a car, most of you do, and you are roughly hurtling through space with about 4,000 pounds of steel or something, seem like it, you're doing that, making incredibly subtle and complex decisions about centrifugal and centripetal force and rates of deceleration and all that. And all the time, you're usually tuning the radio, thinking about where you're going, watching for police, who knows what else you might be doing. And all the time, you're doing all that, and you're doing it on what you could call base brain. That is, you're doing it without being somebody who's driving, and yet driving is happening. Well, it is interesting how you can cultivate a place in yourself that is at rest, even as you're full of activity, so that the activity doesn't wipe you out because you aren't doing it. You can take a long trip. Like people say to me, I'm on a tour now of 60 cities, which means that between now and April 15th, I'll do 32 cities. I'll be in a different city every other night. So I get on the plane every other day. I go to airports. I carry bags. I get off, meet people, get up, give lectures, go to bed, get up, etc. People say, what a demanding schedule. It must exhaust you. You know who'll say that to me? Like a woman who's raising 3 kids. I'll say, are you kidding? I said, I look at your life. What a demanding schedule. It must exhaust you. I said, I don't know, just like you. I get up every morning, I brush my teeth, I get dressed, and I do stuff all day. Then at night, I take off my clothes and I go to bed. And then I start the next day. That's what you do. But you see, the minute I have a model of travel, something happens, interestingly. People, well, I'm traveling. And they get so caught into what you call the dramatic storyline of it, that you wipe out. You wipe out because you milk the drama of your own life, if that isn't too crude an expression. And you learn how to not, like, what a day I've got. Instead of, okay, you do what's immediately on the plate in front of you. If you're here and you got to get there, you get in the car and drive there. And then you're there and the next person comes in and you meet them. And if you keep overriding it with the whole storyline of, well, it's 10 o'clock and I've already done 4 and I've got 6 more and will I do it and all, you'll wipe out. On the other hand, if you just do the next thing and the next thing, and each thing you do fully, constantly pulling your awareness, noticing where your awareness is and bringing it back, you keep coming into a resting space just as you're doing it. And then it's just event after event after event, and you end up being at rest. And I'm learning how to do this. I don't know how to do it. I know it's doable because I know beings who do it. And I just have to learn how to be in the doing rather than get lost into the doing and lose the being. That's the whole process. And this is just a mechanical technique. There are techniques called the witness, which is cultivating a part of you that notices what's going on. Like most people, when you get agitated or angry or depressed, boy, am I depressed. See? Now, if you came to me and you said, which people do, and they go, I'm so depressed. Yep. You're really depressed. Boy, am I depressed. Is every part of you depressed? Yeah, I'm completely depressed. Is there any part of you that isn't depressed? No, I'm completely depressed. You're noticing your depression? Yup. Is the noticer depressed? Well, notice is just noticing. Aha. There's your entry right there. That's that little place. And it starts out with such a subtle little tiny bit of your mind. 99% of your mind is depressed, and 1% is noticing. It's like clouds in the sky. If you take a frame and frame a cloud a certain way, it looks like you just got a frame of gray. But if you put a little bigger frame on, you see there's a little blue around it, and you suddenly say, oh, that's a cloud. It's the same thing you do with your thoughts. See, the thoughts grab you. Like I go into meditation, and the meditative technique I use, which is so Mickey Mouse, it's absurd, is I follow the breath. This is a Southern Buddhist Theravadan technique. It's ancient. It's an ancient technique. I follow the breath, rising and falling in my abdomen. There's a little muscle that goes up and down when you breathe. You can feel it. Now, I start in, and my instruction from my teacher is follow the breath, follow the rising and the falling, and when it rises, notice it rising, and when it follows, notice it falling. So I start. Rising, falling, rising, falling, rising, falling. And the first thing that my mind says is, this is never going to work. See? Now, what happened was, you see, my mind came up with a thought and it said, think of me. Psst, psst, this is never going to work. And if you buy into that thought, you say, you're right, this isn't going to work. Well, thank you very much for the teaching, and you're off, see? If, however, you just agreed that for 20 minutes you'd follow the instruction of the teacher, and he says every time a thought arises, notice that it has arisen, allow it, and then very gently return your awareness back to the rising and falling. So you say, okay, thought, see you later, and you go back to rising, falling, falling. And then a thought comes in. For this, I got a PhD. You know, like, here I went and got all this training and all this, and I'm this intelligent person, and I'm following the breath of whom I better not tell anybody. I mean, it's an embarrassing thing. Well, what'd you do all summer? Well, I followed the muscle rising and falling in my abdomen. Don't you have anything more important to do? You see, I mean, you can feel where that is in relation to the cultural context. So I noticed that as another thought, and then I go back, and then rising, falling, falling. Wonder if the 20 minutes is up yet. Notice it, rising, falling, then I'm hungry, right? My knee hurts. Each one just comes up and it grabs you and says, I'm real, think me. Psst, I'm real, think me. And each time you notice the thought, allow it, and you go back. The one that really sucks you in is rising, falling, rising. My God, I think it's happening. See? That one really gets you. That takes you every time, you know. And then, oh, yeah, it's happening, you know. I remember going to one of my teachers and I said, oh, I've just experienced such peace. I am feeling the peace I've always yearned for all my life. Oh, thank you so much. Oh, this is just so wonderful. He listened. He said, that's fine. Now go back and watch your breath. And that's called spiritual materialism, when you get caught in the experiences that happen along the way. Now, what a simple exercise like that does, which has no religious overlay of any stuff, it's just a mechanical method, is it's allowing you to see the way in which your thoughts keep capturing you into being identified with them by giving you a focal point around which you can see your thoughts grabbing you and pulling you. And just doing that simple little exercise allows you to see your thoughts grabbing and taking you until pretty soon you begin to see that the thoughts are an ocean of continuous thinking. It's like sitting on the edge of a stream and watching the water go by, and leaves come and little fish go by and all kinds of things go, and twigs, and every now and then something catches your consciousness and your head turns to follow it. And when you're meditating, you just keep it right there, and the stuff comes in, exists, and goes by. And what happens just from that little mechanical method is you start to develop a connection to the awareness. It's like the sky that's behind the clouds. Instead of just transferring your identity from being one cloud to the next cloud to the next cloud, which what happens is, I'm hungry, and then you're focused on the refrigerator. And then as you're eating, you think, I'm missing the game, and then you're focused on the television set. And then you're in the middle of the game, and I got to go to the bathroom, and you're focused on it, and your mind is just constantly. You watch from the minute you wake up, like the alarm goes off, or somebody nudges you, or you wake up and you say, I could sleep 10 more minutes. What was I dreaming last night? I've got to go to the bathroom. That's what I need to do. Oh, it's so warm in bed. Gee, I can smell coffee. What was I dreaming? What was I dreaming now? Boy, do I need to go to the bathroom. Oh, I got to do the laundry later. Oh, I forgot that appointment. Oh, God. I got 3 more minutes. And your mind starts. See, and each one is grabbing you, and it goes all day long. It's just all day long. And each one grabs you, and you do this, and then this. And if you would watch it from any vantage point other than being in it, you'd be absolutely amazed at what's happening. That you're at the mercy of these thoughts that just grab you and invest you with reality. And only when you even have a context that it's possible to stand behind your own thoughts in just presence. All you are, to define who you are, is you just awareness. You just is.